Have you ever tried to escape a painful truth, believing that time alone would erase it, only to realize that the longer you run, the heavier it becomes inside your chest? Some memories do not fade when ignored. They remain silent, waiting patiently for the moment you are forced to face them. This is the story of Adam, a man who survived the chaos of war and returned home alive, yet carried an invisible battlefield within his mind, fighting silent battles of guilt, loss, and unanswered truths long after the guns fell silent and the world moved on. Stay until the end, because this story may mirror a truth you're carrying silently, unsure of who could ever understand it. Adam was once known as one of the finest snipers in the military, a soldier admired for his unwavering focus, steady hands, and rare ability to remain calm under extreme pressure, delivering flawless precision with every controlled breath and being trusted repeatedly with the most dangerous, high-risk missions. During a critical and highly classified operation deep behind enemy lines, Adam was deployed alongside his closest friend, a fellow soldier named Smith, a man he trusted completely, fought beside for years, and relied on not only as a teammate but as a brother in the chaos of war. They had trained together for years, through exhaustion, discipline, and relentless drills, shared countless silent nights on watch under dark skies, endured fear and uncertainty side by side, and trusted each other with their lives without hesitation, knowing that in moments of danger, loyalty and instinct mattered more than words. The mission was meant to be swift and controlled, carefully planned down to the smallest detail, with every movement calculated in advance. But war rarely follows plans, and chaos often arrives without warning, tearing apart even the most precise strategies. Enemy forces discovered their position without warning, and within minutes, Adam and Smith found themselves completely surrounded from every direction, cut off from escape, with hostile movement closing in, gunfire echoing through the terrain, and the realization setting in that survival would demand everything they had. Gunfire echoed violently through the ruined terrain as explosions shook the ground, while thick dust and choking smoke filled the air, burning their lungs and blurring their vision, making it difficult to breathe, focus, or think clearly amid the overwhelming chaos and constant threat of death. Adam immediately called for backup, his voice steady yet urgent as he radioed headquarters for emergency support, carefully controlling his breathing while reporting their position, the enemy's movement, and the escalating danger, trusting that help would arrive before time and ammunition ran out. There was no response, no reassuring voice on the other end of the radio, only cold static filling the silence, stretching each passing second into an unbearable weight that slowly transformed hope into confusion. Fear, and the creeping realization that they were truly alone. He tried again, forcing his voice through rising tension, and then again, with growing urgency, adjusting the radio frequency in desperation. But only harsh static answered him each time, mocking his efforts and confirming that no help was coming. Unknown to Adam, High Command had already made a calculated and irreversible decision: to cut all communication entirely, sacrificing connection in order to protect the broader operation, conceal their strategic objectives, and prevent the enemy from detecting signals that could expose command positions. Alone and heavily outnumbered, Adam and Smith fought desperately to survive, relying on instinct, training, and unwavering trust in each other as every second became a test of endurance, courage, and the will to stay alive against impossible odds. In the chaos of relentless gunfire and confusion, Smith was critically wounded, while instinctively shielding Adam from incoming enemy fire, placing his own body between danger and his friend, a selfless act driven by loyalty, sacrifice, and the unspoken bond forged through years of shared combat. With his final remaining strength, Smith held the line against advancing enemy forces just long enough for Adam to escape, buying him precious moments through sheer determination, courage, and sacrifice, knowing fully that he would not survive but choosing duty over his own life. Adam made it out alive, carrying the weight of survival on his shoulders, while Smith did not, his life ending on that battlefield, leaving behind a silence filled with loss, unanswered questions, and a sacrifice that would haunt Adam for the rest of his life. When the war ended and the guns finally fell silent, Adam returned home without celebration or pride, carrying a crushing guilt that words could not express, a heavy burden formed from survival, loss, and the haunting belief that he had lived while his closest friend had not. He left the military soon after, refusing all offers to stay or advance his career, walking away from a life he once believed in because something deep inside him had quietly broken, leaving him unable to trust the institution or the purpose that once defined him. For years, Adam lived quietly on the edges of society, keeping his distance from people and memories alike, haunted by a single unanswered question that echoed relentlessly in his mind every night. Why no one had responded that day, and whether the silence had been a tragic mistake, a calculated choice, or a deliberate betrayal that cost a life. Eventually, the truth surfaced after years of uncertainty and quiet investigation, and Adam learned that the communication had been deliberately cut by those in command. A calculated decision made in distant rooms that prioritized strategy and secrecy over the lives of the soldiers fighting on the ground. They had chosen strategy over lives, valuing plans, objectives, and operational secrecy above the human cost, making a cold calculation that sacrificed individual soldiers for a greater mission, without ever facing the fear, pain, or consequences endured by those left behind. The truth did not bring relief or closure as Adam had once hoped. Instead, it brought a deep and hollow emptiness, stripping away his remaining illusions and leaving him with the painful realization that the loss he carried had been the result of a conscious decision. Adam chose not to confront the truth or those responsible for it, turning his back and walking away instead, believing that distance, time, and silence would eventually dull the pain, even though the memory continued to follow him wherever he went. Years passed slowly and quietly, marked by routine and isolation, yet the weight of the past never truly faded, lingering beneath the surface of Adam's daily life and reminding him that unresolved truths do not disappear with time. One day, the city began preparing for the arrival of a high-profile foreign guest whose visit carried significant political importance, and security became critical, absolute, and uncompromising, with every possible threat analyzed, every weakness examined, and no margin allowed for even the smallest mistake. Fearing the possibility of a sniper attack during the visit, military officials reached out to Adam, relying on his rare expertise, and asked him to assess potential sniper positions throughout the city, believing his experience made him uniquely qualified for the task. Reluctantly, Adam agreed to help, setting aside his doubts and unresolved resentment, unaware that his knowledge and experience were being exploited, and that the request placed him directly inside a carefully constructed trap designed to turn him into a scapegoat. Adam carefully analyzed surrounding buildings, wind direction, elevation, temperature, and distance with professional precision, calculating angles and environmental variables instinctively, his training taking over as years of experience guided every observation, despite the quiet unease growing in the back of his mind. After he left the area, an automated sniper rifle was secretly installed at one of the exact locations Adam had identified as highly dangerous, carefully positioned and calibrated by unseen hands to exploit his expertise and set the final stage of a hidden assassination plan. When the shot was finally fired, the bullet missed the target by mere inches, cutting through the air with terrifying speed, narrowly avoiding tragedy and leaving behind a moment of frozen silence charged with shock, confusion, and fear. Within minutes, the narrative was set and carefully controlled, shaped by powerful voices behind the scenes, turning confusion into certainty and suspicion into accusation, long before the truth had any chance to surface or be questioned. News outlets displayed Adam's face everywhere across screens and headlines, labeling him as the attempted assassin, repeating his name alongside images of violence until public opinion hardened, transforming him from a forgotten veteran into a symbol of guilt overnight. From a forgotten veteran living quietly in the shadows of society, Adam became a hunted man overnight, pursued by authorities, media, and public judgment, forced to confront fear and danger not on a battlefield but within the streets of his own homeland. He ran constantly, changing his appearance whenever possible and hiding in shadows and forgotten places, moving between temporary refuges without leaving traces. He slept in abandoned buildings and cheap motels, learned to avoid cameras, and trusted no one. Every sound felt threatening, every stranger suspicious, knowing one mistake could expose him and end his chance to uncover the truth. But while hiding from the world and living in constant uncertainty, Adam began to think clearly for the first time in years. Away from noise and accusations, his mind settled, allowing buried memories to resurface. Patterns emerged, connections formed, and unanswered questions demanded attention. He replayed past events honestly, realizing that clarity often arrives not in comfort, but in solitude. Piece by piece, the truth emerged as Adam carefully reconstructed past events, examining forgotten details with renewed focus. He connected patterns between the past and present, recognizing familiar names and repeated decisions. Each discovery revealed another layer of deception, making it clear that his suffering was not fate, but the result of deliberate choices by powerful individuals. The people behind the assassination attempt were the same individuals who had cut communication during his mission years ago. Adam recognized their names and methods, seeing a clear pattern of sacrificing lives to protect power. What once seemed like separate tragedies now formed one deliberate chain, proving their betrayal was not an accident but a repeated and intentional choice. The realization was devastating, shattering any remaining illusions Adam still held, yet at the same time deeply liberating, because it transformed his confusion into understanding and replaced years of self-blame with a clear awareness of who was truly responsible. For the first time, Adam stopped running from danger, memories, and fear, standing still in both body and mind, accepting that escape had only prolonged his suffering and that facing the truth was now the only path forward. He gathered evidence quietly, methodically, and without announcement, moving with patience and discipline, collecting documents, intercepted communications, and hidden records while remaining invisible to those controlling the narrative. Each detail was verified, every connection carefully traced, as he worked alone in silence, driven not by revenge, but by a steady determination to uncover the full truth and ensure it could no longer be erased, ignored, or rewritten by those in power. Every lie was carefully traced back to its origin, and every decision was meticulously documented with dates, names, and consequences, forming an undeniable chain of responsibility. Adam followed orders, approvals, and silent omissions with relentless focus, revealing how calculated choices made in safety had led to suffering in the field, until the entire structure of deception stood exposed, clear, organized, and impossible for anyone to dismiss, deny, or hide behind excuses. When the truth finally surfaced and was brought into the open, it shook the foundations of those in power, unraveling carefully protected reputations and exposing hidden decisions, forcing leaders who once operated in silence to confront accountability, public scrutiny, and the consequences they had long avoided. The conspirators were arrested and stripped of their authority, forced to face justice for their actions as evidence closed in around them, leaving no room for denial and compelling them to answer publicly for the lives they had sacrificed and the truths they had tried to bury. When it was over and the chaos finally settled, Adam felt no sense of triumph or victory, only a quiet stillness within himself, as if the weight he had carried for years had finally been set down, leaving space for calm rather than celebration. Only peace remained, a deep and unfamiliar calm that settled within Adam's chest, not born from success or revenge, but from finally knowing the truth and no longer carrying unanswered questions. Smith's sacrifice was no longer buried beneath silence and deception, hidden reports, and false narratives, but finally acknowledged for what it truly was, an act of courage and loyalty that deserved truth, remembrance, and the respect that had been denied for so long. Adam returned to a quiet, ordinary life, but this time without the crushing weight he had carried for so long, no longer burdened by unanswered questions or hidden guilt, finally able to breathe freely and move forward, without the past constantly pulling him backward. He understood something he had avoided his entire life, a truth he had long feared to face, realizing that running from pain had only kept him trapped, while understanding it had quietly set him free. Pain does not disappear when ignored or pushed aside, as Adam had once believed. Instead, it grows silently over time, deepening its roots within the mind and heart until it shapes thoughts, choices, and an entire life. Adam learned that courage is not only found on the battlefield, where danger is visible and immediate, but also in quiet moments of honesty, where facing the truth requires equal, if not greater, strength. Sometimes true bravery is found in facing what we fear most within ourselves, confronting hidden pain, buried guilt, and uncomfortable truths that demand honesty, vulnerability, and the willingness to change. The past cannot be changed or rewritten, no matter how deeply we wish it could be, but it can be understood, examined honestly, and transformed into a source of clarity rather than endless regret. Thank you for listening until the end. If this story resonanted with you, please like and subscribe to the channel to listen to more stories with me.